William Byron gets his third win of the season, and once again, Ross Chastain is the main storyline. Let's talk about NASCAR's Throwback Week in Darlington. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Darlington. The Lady in Black, the track 2 tough to tame, and it did not disappoint today. William Byron gets his 7th career win, his 3rd win this season, shooting him up to the top of the playoff leaderboard, and Ross Chastain once again makes headlines coming on the second to last restart of this race, and we have a whole lot to talk about. I want to kind of digest this slowly because so much happened at the end of this race. There was so much action at the end of this race, a 1 overtime restart and 3 cautions at the end that kind of excelled the way that this race finished. Let's try to break it all down in order. So I do have a list here that I'm going to read off of. So we have, I think it was 18, 19 laps to go. Ryan Newman, while Larson was out front leading, it looked like nobody was going to be able to catch Larson. Chastain was trying to run him down, but probably wasn't going to have enough time to get to him. Ryan Newman spins out, loses control of the race car, comes up, slams into the wall. That brings out the caution. Everybody comes down pit road and pits, and then we have our first restart. I believe this is with 8 laps to go. And that's when things got chaotic. Martin Truex Jr., who'd been really fast all day, dominated a majority of the race, led well over 100 laps at the beginning of the race, had a couple of issues on pit road, actually got involved in a wreck earlier in the race with Chastain, so this was kind of a battle we had brewing all day long. And then Martin Truex Jr. Goes up the racetrack on this restart, just tried to push it too hard, hits the car to the outside of him, he slides into the wall, and everybody, you know, you're so bunched together on these restarts, everybody slides in, huge pile up here coming to the end of this race. Really disappointed that that happened. You hate to see a bunch of good race cars torn up. Like I said, William Byron was really the only dominant race car or race car that we thought was going to win all day long that actually ended the race up front. So that was really disappointing as well. But Martin Truex Jr. just not sure. I mean, I get that you're pushing it hard, and this is going to be the same thing on the next restart I talk about. I get you're pushing hard. I get that you want to go for that win, and you have to take all that you can take, but it's such a low chance that this move works. It's such a low chance that if you dive in there, you're going to make the corner, and obviously he didn't in this instance, so instead he gets no points out of the day, finishes in the back, just very disappointing to see that, and tears up his race car and tons of other race cars, well over 10 cars involved in this pileup, which is just so disappointing to see. I hate that, and I know you're trying to run it, and he probably thought he had enough room, just got tight, but that's just what happens. Then we'll take a look. So we did have that caution. Then we have another restart at the end of the race. And you can take a look here. Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, who were beating and banging on the previous restart, push it too hard. Once again, Ross Chastain does the same thing. Truex just dives it in there so hard that car tightens up on him and slides up into Kyle Larson, causing a 2-car wreck there. That was the second to last restart. Once again, same thing. I just hate to see that. You know, those 2 cars were up front all day long. It was a Kyle Larson battle, Ross Chastain battle. Kyle Larson had a rough day, went back on pit road after the car fell off the jack, was able to come all the way back up to the field and battle it out with Chastain, and you hate to see it end that way. Like I said, there were about 5 cars this race that you could point out and say this car could win the race, and the only one that finished in the top 5 was William Byron. So, and that's just a shame for everybody else, but, you know, obviously William Byron capitalized on that instance. So we can take a quick look here at the final restart. This was the only overtime attempt. They take the green flag. William Byron obviously on the high side. Kevin Harvick on the low side ends up finishing second. And Kevin Harvick didn't dive it in there too hard. Kevin Harvick had a little bit of nose damage on the front of the race car from some previous accidents, so he knew he wasn't going to be fast as the 24. Nobody up front was really as fast as the 24 car, so the 24 car was able to excel and get the win. And I just want to point out that all 3 of William Byron's win this season, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and today at Darlington, came on overtime restarts. Today, I think he was going to get it either way, but once again, William Byron is there to capitalize in these chaotic type races or the overtime restarts. He's definitely there to capitalize, really good at restarts, and you're seeing William Byron now really excel into a top driver as, once again, 3rd win this season is nothing to sleep on at all. So really disappointed in what we saw with Chastain and Martin Truex Jr. I know it wasn't on purpose, but just got to let off. It would have been better to let off and finish 5th or 6th than, you know, watch the rest of the race from the garage. So it's unfortunate. I do want to talk about Ross Chastain for just a moment because he continues to be the point of conversation every week. Obviously last week in the fight with Noah Gragson and the on-track action, and then of course what happened today with Martin Truex Jr. I hear in the post-race show all the time, everybody's talking about Chastain's not going to be able to win the championship. Chastain's not going to be able to win some races. He's making too many enemies. Well, Ross Chastain continues to do these aggressive type moves, continues to make these aggressive type moves, and a lot of times they work out for him. Today it obviously didn't work out for him, but nobody's getting him back. So I don't think they're going to stop him from winning a championship. Nobody's wrecking him back, and I'm not saying they should, but I'm just pointing out, they talk about how he's making too many enemies. When will it be too much? I don't see it. I think he's going to keep going and keep doing it, and I don't know if we'll ever see an end to this aggressive driving style from Ross Chastain. A lot of incidents, if it was somebody else, they wouldn't blame him. Obviously today, it was all on Ross Chastain. That move at the end was definitely on Ross Chastain. The 5 team, Cliff Daniels on the radio, Kyle Larson, obviously upset. Obviously you're going to be upset, right? You just lost a race at Darlington, a NASCAR Cup race. So it's just really unfortunate, but I think Chastain's going to continue to be aggressive. I think he's going to keep doing what he's doing. The only concern I would say is, like today, taking yourself out, losing all the points that you had. He's the points leader right now. That will narrow up if you continue to make the mistakes that hurt yourself. So just want to kind of narrow those down if you're Ross Chastain. But I don't hate what he's doing. I think it obviously adds a level of excitement to NASCAR right now. Ross Chastain, the aggressive driver for sure, has a lot of enemies on track, but so far it's working well for him. So that's all I can really say about that in particular. For sure. So let's go through the top 10 real quick here. I want to talk about the top 10. William Byron obviously won the race, was the fastest car. You know, like there were 5 cars. Christopher Bell, maybe you could throw in there, was really fast. But really the 5 cars were Kyle Larson, Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and then obviously William Byron. Those cars were really the class of the field all day long, and those guys were probably, it was going to be a battle between those to win the race. William Byron was the only one left in the top 5. Like I said, though, Kevin Harvick, obviously his final season in NASCAR, trying to get that win, get that last win. I really hope he gets it. He's been close. He's had a lot of speed. Obviously, today wasn't the best day, but was able to capitalize on the crazy late race accidents, late race crashes, and get a second-place finish. Had a little bit of damage on the car, but still wheeled that thing to a second-place finish. So congrats to Kevin Harvick on another top 10 day. Definitely getting some points there for him. Chase Elliott on his best finish since his return from his injury, finishing 3rd today. He was really upset after the race, said they got a lot of work to do. Wasn't running up front most of the day, wasn't in the top 5 at least for most of the day. Was about a 10th place, 12th place race car, somewhere in between that for majority of the day. Was usually where you saw him running when you look at the score pylon, but obviously Chase Elliott, once again, when you get these crazy overtime restarts where there is a big crash like we saw one big crash at the end of the race, that's when drivers like Chase Elliott can capitalize on that, and he did a great job doing that, finishing 3rd. Brad Keselowski, once again, continuing to show speed week after week. We saw last year, we keep talking about how bad that team was last year, how Keselowski was essentially irrelevant last year, all year long. Brad Keselowski has come up, and that team has come up, and they are really fast. I think they're closer and closer to getting to victory lane. They're not quite the fastest car every week, but they're top to both of those cars. Buescher as well are top 10 cars every week, and Buescher you see finishing 10th as well. So another top 10 for both of those Brad Keselowski racing cars. Definitely exciting to see that team continue to grow and continue to use Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, really, both of their experience to get up front and get better results, and we're starting to continue to see that unfold. Bubba Wallace obviously getting a top 5 finish. Bubba Wallace was up front at the early portions of the race, had some trouble on pit road, had a really bad pit stop. Pit crew was not on top of it today at all for Bubba Wallace. I feel like we're always talking about that with Bubba, but once again on the overtime restarts was able to come up with a solid 5th place finish. Had a fast race car, but man, the pit stops were just killing him, and with these race cars it is harder to pass than ever. Losing track position can be valuable and it can be key in trying to get good finishes. So Bubba Wallace with a 5th place finish. Harrison Burton was able to capitalize on some of that trouble and get a 6th place run. But Harrison Burton was up front for a majority of the day, or at least running better than he has all year. You haven't seen him in the top 20 at a lot of races, but today was in the top 10 from a large portion of the race, or just outside the top 10. So finding some more speed there for the Wood Brothers Ford there. The number 21 gets a 6th place finish today, a very needed top 10 finish for Harrison Burton in the 21 car. Kyle Busch obviously was one of those cars that I mentioned earlier that could have won this race, was one of those cars that were a threat to win the race, was in 3rd for a majority of the day, got up to 2nd. Looked like he was going to try to get past Chastain a couple of times there and take the lead, and then at the end of the race on the final pit stop, slides through his pit box, goes too far, has to back the car up, comes out of pit road 18th. Once again, pit road is really hard on Kyle Busch this year when it comes to pit road speeding penalties, missing the box. The pit crew's made a couple of mistakes, but a lot of these mistakes are Kyle Busch. Pit road is key. It's almost like the special teams in football. It can be major when you make mistakes on it. Kyle Busch got to fix this pit road problem. Sliding through the pit box is something you can't do at the end of the race. Speeding on pit road is something you can't do if you want to win races. And obviously the pit crew can't make mistakes either. Got to clean up these pit stops. And I'm saying this week after week for Kyle Busch. Had a shot to win the race today. Who knows what would have happened if he was, second when all this crazy stuff took place. Kyle Busch could have got the win today. Got to clean up the stuff on pit road for Kyle Busch and the number 18. We'll continue to see how that unfolds moving forward when we go to the next points race in Charlotte. Justin Haley, a solid day today. Obviously, once again, capitalizing on all the carnage, getting a top 10. Ryan Blaney 9th. And then I mentioned earlier, Chris Buescher in the 10th position, so a great day for all those guys. I do want to take a quick look at the playoff standings. We're now 13 races through the regular season, 13 of the 26 races. These are my calculations for the playoff grid. As of right now, Brad Keselowski, obviously another good run, 95 points above. With the speed Brad Keselowski is showing right now, continuing to show week in and week out, Brad Keselowski could have a couple of bad weeks, and he's still probably going to be in the NASCAR playoffs. Unless something really, a big change happens, a disaster happens for that team, Brad Keselowski's probably going to make the playoffs. Even if they don't get a win, they'll make it in on points just with the speed they've had. Brad Keselowski, 95 points above. Chris Buescher, same type deal. Another one of those BFK racing cars, probably going to make it in. 59 points above right now. Unless something drastic changes within that team, I see both of those cars making it in. That is very possible. Bubba Wallace with a solid top 5 run today. Obviously was below the cut line last week, is now above the cut line by 23 points. Still really early, so it's kind of hard to look at these really close point standings because things can change so drastically in 13 more races. You have Chase Briscoe now above the cut line by 5. Alex Bowman still not back from his injury, 5 below the cut line. Daniel Suarez falls to 13 below the cut line after a DNF today. Once again, a few DNFs in a row in a row for Daniel Suarez. Got to clean up that stuff. Got to get to the end of these races. I know today was kind of a weird situation, kind of caught up in a bunch of mess, but got to clean up the stuff on pit road, speeding on pit road, putting you in the back of the field. If Daniel Suarez wants to make these playoffs, got to clean up some of that stuff. Ty Gibbs, once again, continuing to impress, I think, for rookie standard. 15 points below the cut line. Didn't show a whole lot of speed today, though. Austin Cindric, 27 points below the cut line, so got to find some speed for that number 2 Penske car as well, as he did make the playoffs last year and made a decent run in the playoffs last year as well. So that's really all there is to talk about after today at Darlington. A whole lot of action today at Darlington. We do go to North Wilkesboro next week, and I'm really excited for that. It was throwback week this week, but next week's really going to be a throwback. Been over 20 years since we've been to North Wilkesboro. I wasn't even alive the last time they raced there. Jeff Gordon won the last race at North Wilkesboro. I am super excited for this race. I think this is one of the grand marquee events, one of the crown jewel events on the NASCAR schedule this season. I know it's an all-star race, not a points race, but going back to North Wilkesboro, man, people have been waiting for this for decades. I'm excited to see it. I'll obviously do a Dirty Air following that race next Sunday for Tune In, so tune in for that. And like and subscribe if you like the video. Leave a comment what you think about Ross Chastain, what you think about Truex's move, and what you think about William Byron getting that 100th win for the 24 car. That's it. That's all there is to talk about, and of course about Kyle Busch sliding through his pit box. Let's get rowdy.